satellite link up
It's really
to the nearest space station. I can sit. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. Amma ba'ad, we express our praise and gratitude to Allah Ta'ala. And we seek blessings upon the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Alright, so the goal for today is to, at the very least, finish off Surah Al-Fatiha, and then to go from there. So, we've gone through the first half of Al-Fatiha, as was so expertly discussed by both of our speakers. We see the first half is telling us who is Allah Ta'ala in relationship to us. Second half is us in relationship to Allah Ta'ala. And that's what we're focusing on especially now. So the last portion of Al-Fatiha, we are saying to Allah Ta'ala, you guide us in the straight path, the path of those whom you have favored, not the path of those on whom is angered, nor those who are astray. And I'll repeat this a million times in order. So guide us in the straight path. This point we've also discussed. A point that I also want to emphasize, and I think we had the discussion last time, that if you're looking at a map, and think of what you think of when you think of straight path, right? It's the most quick path, it's the most efficient path, it's the shortest way, it's the easiest way. Philosophically, in your mind, that's how you should think of Islam, right? And this becomes especially important because in our community, and I think this is true all across the globe, when we imagine Islam, when we think of Islam, we think of it as big, complicated, full of rules, this and that. My life is easier if I'm outside of Islam than it is inside Islam. But the approach you want to have when you're just even imagining the deen is think of it the same way you think of a straight path on a map, right? Easy, as opposed to difficult, straight as opposed to crooked. My life is easier being on the straight path than it is off the straight path, all these things. This becomes really, really important. Just like we said, how I think of Allah Ta'ala will influence how I interpret, how I understand what happens to me. How I understand Islam will also inform what Islam is telling me to do. Okay? And I gave the example that very, very wonderful hadith where the Prophet, peace be upon him, is reported to have said that this world is a prison for the believers and paradise for the kafirs, right? A prison for the believers and paradise for the kafirs. When you think of Islam as difficult, and we're not saying life is easy, but when you see Islam as difficult, then how do you understand this? Okay, this world is a prison for the believers because we're not allowed to do anything. Whereas kafirs are free to do everything. Okay? But the real deeper way to look at this, and this is narrated by Ali radiallahu anh, is that this world is prison for the believers because it's preventing me from getting even closer to God. Right? And it's paradise for the kafirs because, as far as they're concerned, their God is here. Right? And so, the point is, how I look at the deen will then also create a whole system of how I understand the teachings in the deen. Okay? Even how I hear them, I'm going to hear them either as something that makes my life easier, or I'm going to hear them as something that makes my life more difficult, more complicated, more sluggish, all those things. Okay? So guide us in the straight path, and then we define the straight path three ways. Number one, the path of those whom you have favored. Number two, the path of those on whom is anger. And you notice I keep speaking really slowly at that point, and we'll explain why in a moment. And number three, those who the straight path, the path of those, not the path of those on whom is anger, nor of those who are astray. So the path of those whom you have favored. Is there any person in history who has not received favors from Allah Ta'ala? Easy question. No. Right? Everyone has received favors from Allah Ta'ala. So when I'm making this request, in the most simple form, what am I really asking? Okay. If I already believe that everyone in history, including the Pharaoh, has received favors from Allah Ta'ala, what am I really asking? I'm asking, guide me to see my life as favors. Okay. Guide me to see the favors of my life. Okay. This is, in the most simple nutshell, what I'm really asking. Okay. So if I see my life as favors, how am I going to respond? Gratitude, alhamdulillah, which is what the surah begins with. Right? This is what the surah is all about. So this surah is a dua. I am speaking to Allah Ta'ala. He's giving me the script. I am speaking to Allah Ta'ala. Okay? And essentially we're saying it's a prayer for guidance, but guidance ultimately to what? Gratitude. Okay? This is the heart of one of the central themes of Islam. Gratitude to Allah Ta'ala. Think back when we look at the passage on Luqman alayhi salam, right? we said that passage that we saw, Allah Ta'ala says that we endowed Luqman with wisdom, and then what did that wisdom lead him to? Same thing, gratitude to Allah Ta'ala. Okay. And what we're going to see way down the line when we get to the story of the children of Israel, their central flaw was lack of gratitude. Okay. Gratitude is at the heart of what we're talking about here. Now, when we're saying guide us on the straight path, we have another passage in the Quran that explains this further. So those of you who have translation in front of you, open up to Surah An-Nisa, Surah 4. It's around ayah 68.
Ayah 68.
Yeah. And so whoever has the
57.
page 57, that edition.
56.
68. Do you need a Quran? Does anyone need a Quran? This translation.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. So this is ayah 68. Ayah 68. وَلَا هَدَيْنَاهُمْ, and we would guide them صِرَاطًا مُسْتَقِيمًا, and we would guide them on the straight path. We would guide them to the straight path. So who are then those people who are on the straight path? First description, ayah 69. Whoever listens to Allah and the Messenger. So one way we just define the straight path is on the path seeking to become more grateful, or thus the path of gratitude. Another way to define the same thing, how do I get on this path? Obedience to Allah Ta'ala and the Messenger. All of us take that, all of us take that as common sense, but putting it in practice is much more difficult, right? That also central to the deen is obedience. And you see this especially with so-called reformists, that many so-called reformists are essentially doing the opposite. They're trying to conform Islam, repackage Islam so that it fits our lifestyle. The challenge of reform is how do you repackage Islam so it's completely loyal to the tradition. It's still in active obedience to Allah Ta'ala and relevant to your time and place. So part of submission, thus we call our tradition submission, is obedience to Allah and the Prophet, peace be upon him. Okay? And then who are these people? These are the people to whom Allah Ta'ala bestows His favors. Okay? So what is my path to gratitude? Obedience to Allah Ta'ala. What's the relationship between gratitude to Allah and obedience to Allah?
And one gratitude leads to obedience.
Okay, so gratitude leads to obedience, absolutely. Why?
You feel obliged to do it.
Absolutely, right? Although you've given me so much, the least I can do is to listen to you, right? And on top of that, we're also saying the flip side, that the path of obedience should, in theory, lead to more gratitude. It should become perpetual. Okay? So this has then become the favor of guidance. Okay? Now, 4 types of people are described as being on the straight path. Nabiyyin, Siddiqeen, Shuhada, Salihin.
Which ayah is this?
So this is ayah 69. Nabiyyin, Siddiqeen, Shuhada, Salihin. So Nabiyyin, these are the prophets, peace be upon them. That path is finished, right? That's not something we're eligible for. That's not a status that we are capable of reaching. The other 3 we are. Okay? Either one of them or all of them. Siddiqeen, Shuhada, Salihin. Siddiqeen, why do we call Abu Bakr Siddiq? Why?
The truthful?
Okay, it's even deeper than truthful. Siddiq is when you see truth, you recognize it and you accept it. That's Siddiq. Okay. So why do we call him Siddiq? A couple of reasons are given. One, of all the Sahaba, he's the one who went right into the deen. Right? No questions, he didn't need anything, he understood it right away. Okay. Another reason is that when the Prophet, peace be upon him, went on the night journey, and he came back and he's telling everyone about the night journey, the people who were mocking the Prophet, peace be upon him, went to Abu Bakr and they said, "Can you believe what your friend is saying now?" And Abu Bakr said, "What? If he's saying it, then it's true." So what did he say? And then so they explained the whole night journey, and Abu Bakr says what? The Quran is more amazing than the night journey. Which is a pretty deep statement, right? Or I believe that words are coming to me from the sky. That's more amazing than this
So you
night
said
journey.
those who recognize truth and accept it.
Those who recognize truth and embrace it. Yeah.
Recognize
This is
and embrace.
Siddiq. Shuhada. How do we commonly translate shuhada? What is a shaheed?
Martyr.
A martyr. Okay, but what does shahid mean literally?
To witness.
To witness. So what's the relationship between the two? What's the relationship between being a witness and being a martyr?
See you die and use witness truth.
Okay. But even a step before that, that I have such belief in this truth that I'm willing to give my life for it. Right? That I'm willing to bear witness with the single most precious thing that I have, which is my life. Yeah. And what does that mean? Well, actually, we'll talk about this in just a second. The third type of person, salihin, is what? The person of upright character. Not just upright character. Upright character that has the influence on the people around them, causing other people to have upright character. These are the consequences. This is the result of being on the straight path. So what does that mean? That if I'm on the path of gratitude, if I'm on the path of obedience to Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger, the consequence is one or more of these three, or I'm working in these three directions. Siddiqeen means what? I recognize truth when I see it, and I embrace it. What does that mean in simple language? You think clearly. Okay? That you're thinking clearly so you can see the difference between truth and falsehood. Okay? This is a consequence of these behaviors, these obedience to Allah Ta'ala, the Messenger. Yeah, it's something important to think about, because a lot of times when we get involved in religion, we stop thinking clearly. It's almost as though we shut our minds off. Okay. Shuhada, what does that mean in simple language? You're embodying this. Okay. I mean, you're living it with your whole life. Salihin, we're saying perfect character. And of such character that the people around you also get influenced to have good character. Okay. These are the consequences. This is what it means. This is the result of being on the straight path, inshallah. Okay. And think about this. These are three depictions, the descriptions of what does it mean to be religious. Okay. The second one's the easy one, right? That you are living it, you're practicing it, all those things. First one is you're thinking clearly, you see the truth, you recognize it. You know the truth when you see it. The third one also is what it means to be religious. You have perfect or increasingly perfect character. But salih means it's reforming others. And then we also have a hint here, because what does it say? وَحُسْنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. And these are excellent companions. So these are the companions in paradise, but if I want to become like these people, then I put myself in their company. So if we had that privilege, we would have put ourselves in the company of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Okay. But if you know someone who seems to have this clarity of thought, okay, clarity in understanding reality, then put yourself in the company of that person, if you can. If you see someone who is upright in terms of fulfilling all their obligations, or they're very solid about it, put yourself in the company of those people. And if you see someone who is very upright in character, put yourself in the company of those people. What's the point? It'll rub off on you, inshallah.
So why is it that some of the most intelligent people in the world are not recognizing truth?
Are they intelligent?
We say they're smart, but they're really dumb.
Are they not thinking clearly?
What's the definition of intelligence?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it would be the same question for anyone who's good at anything. So someone who's good intellectually, or someone who's even, a star athlete physically, right? Some people will see truth, and some people won't, and that's the frightening reality of life, right? That some people do not care to see truth; they're immersed in this world, right? And they use their full capacities.
So what about if someone's mentally challenged, like severely, but they have even got everything clearly?
So, what's the question?
Huh?
I don't understand the question.
No, I'm just saying, like, so does it have to do with your intellect to think clearly?
Yeah. Because, I mean, the Sahaba, by and large,
There could be
cannot read or
emotional
write.
intelligence, right?
But I don't think that says anything about their intelligence, though.
Fair, that's fair. Still, okay, so, we have IQ, we
Because I
have
feel
EQ,
like
and all these
Allah
things.
grants you that clarity. I don't know if it has anything to do with.
Well, okay, so the Allah side of it, He granting it, we can't really comment on that, right?
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
But the basic point being that someone with a 200 IQ versus someone with 110 IQ, I don't think that someone with a 200 IQ automatically will see reality better, right? Someone who has suffered might see reality better than someone who's lived a life of ease.
Because, this whole process of measuring the IQ is for a specific category of
Yeah, it's not really culturally specific.
Yeah, I mean, it's academic or
Yeah.
I don't know how they measure that IQ. In
Yeah, we
general.
call this the RQ, the reality quotient.
But the
How much
reality
can I
of
see
what?
reality?
Of the academics only.
No, I'm saying IQ is intelligence quotient,
Oh.
there's EQ, emotional quotient,
Okay.
quotient, and then the RQ.
Okay.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so guide us on the straight path, the path of those whom you have favored. The next, not of those on whom is anger. Notice what word do I keep skipping? Not of those on whom is your anger. That's not part of the text here. Not of those on whom is anger. غير المغضوب عليهم. Okay, your is not part of the text. Okay. So what are we saying here? When you have a translation that is saying, not the path of those on whom is your anger, this is interpretation more than translation.
Wait, not of those upon is anger?
So, our official Arabic translators. غير, how do you translate غير?
Except,
Okay, except. مغضوب.
Maghdub, it's really difficult to explain. It comes from anger, obviously,
Yeah.
but to have anger upon them.
Exactly. عليهم,
Them.
upon them. Meaning your is not there, so it'd be like مغضوب عليهم or something.
But it's not a wrong grammatical statement, right?
It is a wrong grammatical statement, that's what I'm saying.
What is it?
Not in Arabic, no.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like in Arabic,
Which part?
it doesn't make.
غير المغضوب عليهم is not, it's grammatically correct.
It's-
No, that's correct. We're
Because
saying,
it's
if I translate this as not of those,
Oh, okay.
not of those on whom is your anger, that's not part of the text, that's what we're saying. Okay, I'm
Okay.
saying that's
So
not,
it
So
is-
just
this
anger in
is
general, we're saying.
not of those, or other than those, on whom is anger. Okay? Not of on whom is your anger, that's not part of the text.
Just anger.
Yes.
It's not Allah's wrath.
If we take that clause on its own, it is not automatically Allah's wrath.
The
The reason people might say it is it because it's the al maghdub? You know, it's the people who are,
Mm.
you know.
I haven't thought about it that way. I gotta think about this one. The reason people say this is that, all right, so where's the source of anger? Well, if we move back, okay, we're talking to Allah Ta'ala, so it could be that, right? Or, back, could be talking about us. So let's see what happens when you put them together. The path of those whom you have favored is what? The path of gratitude, the path of obedience. The path of those on whom is anger. If we're juxtaposing this as the opposite, what are we saying here? That the path of anger is the opposite of the path of gratitude. Okay? That gratitude in this context is the opposite of anger. Okay. So how does that work? Gratitude, what's the opposite of gratitude? Ingratitude. We're saying ingratitude is a form of anger. What is ingratitude? Ingratitude is, I work so hard and I get nothing, that person doesn't do anything, that person gets everything. That's ingratitude. Did I just-
Everyone looks at a file all of a sudden, like, what was that about? They're like, ha 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 ha. It's like, whoa, what's going on here?
So many times.
It's like, what?
You burn many a midnight oil.
It's lovely when you have your siblings around.
I know,
huh?
isn't
You
it?
just-
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I'm just glad my siblings aren't here, so. Yeah, so, what are we saying here that central to the prayer of Al-Fatiha, guide me to have more gratitude, guide me to wash out my anger. Okay. If I respond to Allah Ta'ala's favors with anger, then what would be the expected response from Allah Ta'ala? Potentially anger, right? So this is how to see the your anger playing out. But that's not the actual text, yes.
I'm still really confused about this ayah. Like what anger is it? Like, what does that mean? Those who
So-
incur anger. Like, what anger?
Okay, so if you are ungrateful for what you have, what's your sentiment? It's going to be the sentiment of anger. So, guide me to your favors, thus I become grateful. Okay, guide me, if I don't see them as favors, what's my risk that I become angry?
Why doesn't it just say upon those who have gratitude and anger?
Because, I mean,
Would that
it's
just be
more
He's
than
been
that.
wording. I mean, he's
Sure.
been concise.
I don't understand the question.
No, I guess I'm just saying, like, throughout, like, my life, I feel like I've always interpreted it the other way because that's how we were taught.
Yeah, and that's why we're having this class.
It's to undo Islamic school.
Why is it that that's how we were taught?
Let's unlearn what you have learned.
Why?
Your
I
life.
think that anger is a loaded term.
Yeah.
Because it's not just anger towards one thing. It's not anger towards one thing that happens to you.
It's a state.
It's a state of disbelief or ingratitude. Maybe not disbelief. Maybe that's too extreme. it's a state of ingratitude, and what I mean by that is, it's one or the other, right? It's gratitude that leads towards love, or ingratitude that turns you away, right? So it's your interpretation of the things that you've gone through
Yeah.
that is not leading you towards closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in that, everything that happens to you, if you interpret it in anything other than gratitude, then your interpretation is going to lead you to become an angry person.
Potentially, yes.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And
You
I
know?
think,
Yes, please.
sorry, one more point about this. I think the point when you're saying it doesn't say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's anger or like your anger, it kind of is a mercy as well, because whoever, I'm sure we've all done things to be disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he never even says like that my anger is upon those people, or he doesn't use the word my anger, it's just anger, and so it's kind of like it kind of leaves the door open even
Absolutely.
if someone has done something that is worthy of anger.
We can take this a step further. You have a question? Okay, we can take this even further. When speaking about Allah Ta'ala, let's say this is referring to the wrath of Allah Ta'ala, that there's an adab in speaking about Allah Ta'ala. Good. That, when we speak about Allah Ta'ala, we only say good things. Okay. So, for example, is Allah Ta'ala the creator of all? Yes or no?
Yes.
Did he create shaitan?
Yes.
Yeah, he did. Out of adab, we don't say that. Right? Did he create evil? If you create everything, then logically, yeah. Out of adab, we don't apply that to God. It's understood. Like, for example, if I was going to tell you, how did my mother spend her day? She got up, she prayed, she did this, she ate, she did such and such and such, right? Out of adab, in talking about my mother, there are things I'm not going to say, right? Like, I'm not going to talk about her going to the bathroom, or whatever else, right? So the point is that there's another lesson that's taken from the way this ayah is written, or this way in which this ayah is understood, is that when we speak about Allah Ta'ala, there's an adab that we use. So let's look at this point a step further. Let's go to Surah Al-Falaq, all the way at the end. So even when you think of Allah Ta'ala, right? We said early on that the name Allah is the most sacred name in the entire language. It's the most sacred name of any language, which means even when I think of Allah Ta'ala, I should think only good things. That takes effort, right? Because if you start thinking, okay, Allah's out to get me, Allah's going to punish me, so forth and so on, we have to try to program ourselves out of that. So Surah Al-Falaq, which everyone probably has memorized. Right there, we see this in the first two ayahs. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. Say, I seek refuge from the Rabb of the Falaq, first break. Min sharri ma khalaq. How do you translate this? Or how's it translated?
From
Original creation.
From the evil of what he created. Where is the evil being pointed to? Creation. Right? It's a subtle point.
the
Point.
evil of what he created.
So-
Not his evil, but the
So
evil
we're not
of the
assigning evil to
creation.
him. We're even assigning the evil to the creation. So understood, he created everything. Okay. But out of adab is how we speak about him. Take it a step further. Yeah.
So it's really, he created the ability for humans to have free will, right? And the humans are choosing to do evil. So
Okay.
yeah, at the end of the day, out of other we don't say that, but the fact is that it's the creature, the creation itself that's invoking evil.
Sure, but if I say that Allah Ta'ala created everything, I'm saying he created the person, he created the capacity for evil, he created the evil itself. Out of adab, that part we don't say. It's understood. Right? To contrast this with textbook
I
Catholicism.
still have a slight, more of a metaphysical sort of disagreement with that.
Yeah, far away.
Yeah.
Let's hear the metaphysical disagreement. That was a pretty heavy term.
Because really, I mean, for us, with Allah, there's no, yes, he created this, but
Okay, so this is free will predestination. Let's say
Yeah.
that till we get to ayah 6 and 7, inshallah.
yeah, but in
Okay.
fact, it's us.
Okay, we'll get to that in ayah 6 and 7, inshallah.
Yeah,
But
I know.
this becomes, for example, textbook Catholicism. Okay? God is good, but God did not create evil. Good. So this becomes what we call the theodicy debate. Where did evil come from? For us, God created everything, but there's things we just don't.
Theodicy debate?
Theodicy.
Yeah.
Basically, where does evil come from? Okay. So, not of those on whom is anger. So the easy way to think of it as metaphor, the behavior of anger is like fire. Okay, how does fire work? When it's on fire, how does it stay alive? By consuming, consuming, consuming until there's nothing left to consume. That's the nature of anger. When you get angry, what often happens? You're looking for more reasons to get angry, right? This, right? You know, when our parents get angry at us, right? It's not just that I did this one thing wrong. I've still discovered 10 more things I've done wrong, right? Okay, mashallah. So the behavior of gratitude is like water. Okay. You can't have both in the same heart. Okay. And I'm talking about your condition. That one will win. If you have gratitude or if you have anger in your heart, one's going to win over the other. Okay. This does not mean no anger. Did the Prophet, peace be upon him, did he get angry?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. There's a right place for anger. Okay. That anger can even be beneficial as a natural, properly used sentiment. Okay. What we're talking about here is how I feel about what Allah Ta'ala gave me. So an example would be Omer, may Allah be pleased with him. We often describe him as someone who's angry, right? But see if you can ever find an example of him getting angry over a personal attack, right? He gets angry on matters of righteousness, as opposed to doing bad things to him. So the path of your favors, not of those on whom is anger, and the last, nor of those who are astray, which are the people who are just completely lost. Okay, so it's not even a matter of gratitude and anger; they're just lost off the path. So this surah is a prayer for guidance, and thus for gratitude, guidance to help in being able to obey Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger, and then a prayer for ridding anger. Yes?
Okay, so the last word, waladhalin,
Yeah.
right? Those are astray. Well, how would you, if you were to look at today's society,
The Christian.
like, no, but I mean, like, because we, you know, I mean, how are we to conceptualize that? I mean, differentiate that between
Okay.
those who are angry and whatever.
Okay, so look at Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'in. You alone we worship, you alone we ask for help. If I say to Allah Ta'ala, you alone we worship, okay, I turn my back on Him, which one am I?
Let me say it again.
So I'm saying to Allah, you alone we worship, you alone we ask for help.
Yeah.
But in practice, I turn my back on Him.
Okay.
Which one am I?
Isn't the anger?
That'd be the path of those on whom is anger. Now suppose the one I worship is not Allah Ta'ala, but I am so dedicated. That's the one who's astray. Right?
So it's
you're
like
dedicated to worshiping
it's
somebody
like their
else?
worship is misplaced, or
Yes.
no. But would
It's
you say
misdirected? Yes.
misdirected, or wandering, or just don't care, or
Yes, yes, and yes. Meaning those are three separate
all?
people.
So
but
it's kind of like.
don't care. It depends on the person, right? That could be more of a faucet.
So is that kind of like, okay, this is we're just lumping everyone else under Darlene, kind of? Is that
So-
how to think about it? I'm just
so
trying to be precise.
Commentators, what do they say? That when it says those upon whom is anger, what does it say in parentheses? That part that we don't want, those translations we don't want to talk about. So it says such as the Jews, right? And then those are,
Oh my gosh.
you haven't seen this?
Oh yeah,
You'll probably have it
early
on your phone.
old Yusuf Ali, yeah.
Even Yusuf Ali too. Yeah, you definitely see it in most of the translation. And then for those who are astray, it says such as the Christians, right? How does that work out? Because it's not so much the Jews, it's the children of Israel in the Quran, right? Which is people who were given everything, but they did not respond with gratitude. Okay? And that lack of gratitude led to misbehavior, which led to horrendous crimes. Okay? So then it says very categorically, then they had the ghadab of Allah upon them, the anger of Allah, right? And then the Quran says many nice things about Christians, but it says that they go too far.
They're still,
They do things
okay.
that Allah Ta'ala didn't ask
So
them
they're
to do.
still living like a good life, ethically, morally, but they're still worshiping
Yeah, but they're
Mr.
wrong direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that does clarify.
Any questions? I mean, so this is when commentators apply that's how you make sense of it. Any questions so far?
Well, you know, I heard your interpretation of غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ, but the literal explanation of it is very clear, and it's from God to those He has bestowed His anger upon. It's very clear in Arabic when you read it that way. So, I mean, I think that's you know, an interpretation, but to read that and to hear your explanation just doesn't add up in my head.
Take it further, continue on.
Because of the way it's written, غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ. So it's from God to those that He's given anger So
But
you have to be
Maghdub
ghadab in order to have.
Yeah, the question I'm asking is, it doesn't say that Allah Ta'ala is Ghadab, right? It says that He's the Qadir.
Well, I'm saying in order to have people who are
Sure.
maghdub,
Yeah.
you have to have a ghadab, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's like a giver and a receiver.
And
So to receive anger, you
Yeah.
have to have a source of anger.
absolutely, absolutely. The point that I'm making is that it is not saying that Allah Ta'ala is the Qadir. That we are understanding that, okay, when you have a Maghdub, okay, that you have to have a Qadir. Agreed, right? That's just basic. Okay? What we're saying is that the Ghadab is not by definition Allah Ta'ala. Right? That there is a Ghadab here. And if we move back, if we're speaking to Allah Ta'ala, then we would say, yeah, it fits. But I'm saying it's not exclusively that. See what I'm saying? Okay. Now we're getting more into the Arabic semantics. Yeah, it sounds, what I'm saying sounds way off the mark, right? And I'm saying, the part that I'm emphasizing is that, okay, that the way it's formed, there has to be someone who's a source of the anger. This is what you're saying,
Yeah.
right? And I'm saying the text does not say that. The text does not say who is the source.
But isn't that the adab
It is
of
implied.
It's
It is
understood.
implied
Well-
that we understand that it is that Allah is the source, right? But it's not really literally explicit in the Arabic.
Okay, so I'm saying both of these, right? That in terms of the rhetoric, who else is mentioned in the surah? Mentioned in the surah is we're speaking to Allah Ta'ala, right? We're speaking of Him actively, right? This is where we're saying it's the other thing. But before that, what I'm saying is that the one on whom is anger can be myself from myself. That's the part where it sounds weird. What do you think?
I think it's an interpretation.
Okay. Yeah, that's
No,
fine.
but that's just those the Mufassirun have taken and have given the classical interpretation of assigning the anger and assigning these things to based on their intellect and based on their understanding of classical Arabic and based on the context of what was being said at that time. I mean, if you take a literal translation of it, absolutely you would think it that way. But I think if the Mufassirun are coming up with something that's an alternative explanation, they have a broader knowledge base of context that they can use and assign the anger to ourselves, for example, right? Am I thinking of
This
it
is
right?
essentially the point I'm arguing, right?
Yeah.
It's not that we're disagreeing. I'm saying that even it doesn't automatically refer to Allah Ta'ala. This is the point we're making.
I think what he's saying is it's linguistically it's exclusive to Allah. That's what you're arguing linguistically.
No, I'm just saying there
He's
is
saying
a
there has to be a source
There
of
has to be
anger.
a source of
Yes,
anger.
and the
It's not-
source of that anger is implied to be Allah. It doesn't say غير المغضوب Allah عليهم,
It's inferred to be Allah.
but it's inferred to be Allah. But I think what you're saying is that because it's not explicitly stated that way, it is open. So it's the wrath of Allah and also anger in general of yourself, of other people, whatnot.
I mean, there aren't too many other directions it can go, right? I mean, it's basically it's either Allah Ta'ala or me, right? And so what I'm saying is that it's me as well as Allah Ta'ala. Because if I respond to Allah Ta'ala's favors with anger, what should I expect from Allah Ta'ala? But with other people.
I mean, I think the dua is coming from the person giving the dua, right? So, right, I mean, that makes sense, right? So, if someone is doing X, Y, and Z, and they are feeling a sentiment of gratitude towards the Creator, and they do things other than those things that are not in the prescription of what else we're asking you to do, then they are the ones that are experiencing gratitude. They're the ones that are experiencing anger towards everyone around there. It's a state of discontent. So it's not that Allah is giving them discontent, is that their receptacle of their being actually is experiencing discontent by not following the prescription.
Yeah, effectively. That's
So the anger is within the person, not something that is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the source of the anger. It's that person finds themselves in a state of discontent and finds themselves in a state of anger because the direct connection and the need of our soul is gratitude, and in doing that gratitude that leads to happiness, right? And content and happiness and love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by not doing those things, you yourself, within yourself, are creating a sense of discontent and anger. You know what I'm saying? So it's not something that Allah is creating within you by choosing this free will, whatever you want to call it, and you chose the other way, and you didn't follow the prescriptions to allow your heart to become connected. You've created a discontent within yourself, is the way I'm understanding it.
And I think for just
Sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
One point about like the Ghair al-Maghdubi, going along that it doesn't assign a causative, like, I think it kind of, even though the is there, it kind of makes it more more vague, and so it kind of is like, if this is a dua, this is like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, you may be angry, but I am also angry, and like, I don't want to, so it's like kind of like drawing you closer to Allah. Yeah, it's drawing you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you're like asking Him, like, I understand what I've done is something that, you know, can make you angry, but I've got anger too at myself for this thing. So it kind of, that kind of vagueness is there.
This point we'll be getting to a little bit later on, inshallah. Yes?
I've also heard it interpreted that anger upon them is, you know, from any sphere. So if bad things happen to you, or people are angry with you, while the angels are maybe cursing you. And, I don't know, or you know, people. I mean, all of creation. Like if you're in a state of obedience, and you know, even the fish in the sea will pray for you, and all of that. Like they're spiritually inside and out. Like everything is kind of inshallah switched on. But if you're not, and you know, you're ungrateful or whatever, then ghadab can come on you, like from all sources, all sides. And you don't know.
And when you say that Allah's becoming angry, I mean, again, metaphysically, it's like you're saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needs these things to not be angry, you know? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need anger.
I don't think it goes that far, though.
Is that right? Okay.
Is that far away?
Okay. So, I think we, you know, as Muslims in general, we struggle with, we like to think of God as the compassionate, the merciful, we stress, you know, those types of characteristics and qualities, and we always conveniently, you know, shy away from the other descriptions of God. I mean, there are a lot of, if we look at the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, some of them are, you know, are very strong and very powerful. And
Yeah, but I don't think we're doing that, right?
Well, I mean, what we're doing here is saying, well, غير المغضوب عليهم can be necessarily God's anger, because, you know, God is the, you know, Rahman and Rahim and Ghafur and Shakur. But there's also, you know, Mu'izz, there's Al-Mudir. If you look at the word, like.
But I mean, but we're not disagreeing with that point, right? I mean, this is an attempt to water down Allah Ta'ala, right? I mean, because even we made the point that why is Bani Israel, what does the language use? Waba'un biqadam min Allah, right? That they have gotten upon them the qadab, that exact word of Allah Ta'ala, right? That's not what we're doing, right? We're not watering down. But the key point being the grammar point is just that simple point that the fa'il is not being mentioned, right? The one who is doing the anger. That's the key point that we're making. You're saying that it's absolutely clear it's Allah Ta'ala. Saying no, it's not. That's the difference.
I have a question.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Based on
Yeah.
well, how would we differentiate between Allah being angry and sending us anger towards, you know, in our life in different spheres, and tests and struggles? I mean, I'm not sure if it's in the same.
Okay. So the default way you should look at everything that happens to you is as test. Okay. There are some things that are happening to me because of the consequence of my actions.
Yeah, could we be delusional thinking, oh yeah, it's just because it's tests, because Allah loves me so much that usually the ones that He loves, He tests more, other than, you know, you're really screwing up and you're just not getting it, and Allah's trying to just push you towards the straight path, but you're just stubbornly going in the wrong direction.
If it leads me to do haram, you know, and potentially makruh things, then I'd be concerned, right? If it does not necessitate me to do something wrong, then you look at it as a test.
So it's just the state of the heart, and
Which part is the state of the heart?
well, in general, like I'm just thinking hypothetical of a person that everything goes wrong in their lives, you know.
Okay.
Like alhamdulillah, we've been very blessed in our circumstances, because we live here and we're healthy and we're, you know, relatively well off and financially stable, to the point that we have sustenance and things like that, and a job and all of this, you know, alhamdulillah, great things. But other people that are in different circumstances than us, they could very well look around. It's like, yeah, of course you guys are grateful, but my life sucks. You know, we have every single thing that we try to do right is going wrong because of, you know, there's external, you know, factors that they just don't go their way, and it's just not easy for them. Could it be, you know, politically or socioeconomically, whatever. That's what I'm saying. Like, I've seen other people's points of view in which they could have that argument in which they say, yeah, I'm not sure if Allah is just angry at me and that's why I have such
Yeah,
a hard life, or if it's just the
uh,
tests.
I don't think we can take it to that degree. That, okay, this is happening to me because Allah is angry with me.
Okay.
Right.
So it's always just
The default
it's
state.
a test.
I mean, keep in mind, prosperity is a test too.
Yes.
Prosperity
of
is a test of gratitude, right? Like, what do we mean when we're saying that a struggle is a test? That I am not breaking any of the rules, even though life is so rough, right?
Okay.
So what does it mean to break the rules then, right? Okay, God, you're doing this to me, I'm not going to pray anymore. Or, okay, that, okay, life is so difficult, so I'm going to start cheating. Okay. Or, this person did wrong to me, so I'm going to start saying nasty things about them. So that's where the test becomes in the action. So
Okay.
there's the misery of being in the test, right? Then how do I respond? And so I should not look at something happening to me because Allah Ta'ala is angry with me, right? Otherwise, if I get hit by a hurricane, it's what, when a hurricane wipes out somebody, Hurricane Ingrid, for example, wipes out a hurricane, right? Okay. Then you're going to have that such and such preacher say, well, that's, it's they're getting punished by Allah Ta'ala. Can't do that. Yes?
Question here. Go ahead.
Time, guys, just a warning, because he has to go, so brief.
I have
Yeah.
a bit of time today, but yeah, I have to go to the airport.
You need to unmute yourself.
What's else there?
Okay, while she's doing,
I think that's
maybe, yeah, why don't you go to Quran?
The summary I've heard in terms of test and punishment,
Yeah.
whether it is a punishment or a test, is how you respond. And what I've heard from scholars is that if you are tested or punished, or not really, I shouldn't use the word punished, but tested or put in a difficult situation, if you draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a result of that,
Victory.
that is a test.
Pass.
And if you draw away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
Then you
you
fail.
turn away from Him, that's a punishment.
Sure.
Shoot.
You can go ahead online.
Maybe not.
You want to point to them? Yeah. Sharifa, we can't hear you. Unmute yourself. Oh. Okay, type your question, I'll answer.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Go ahead. Maybe you should just
Is
type
that even human? Is it a cyborg? Alright, just type it. I don't know.
Sharifa,
We
we
can't-
can't hear you very clearly. Type your
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Type it quickly because Umar's got to. It's is that Stephen Hawkins?
It's Sharifa's dad. That's kind of asking us.
His father is here to ask this question?
Yeah.
Oh, subhanAllah.
He said he will ask him tomorrow when we go to MCC.
Okay,
I
inshallah.
guess you're going to be on
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, they're gonna try and Skype in for
Okay.
Monday night.
Oh, really?
We're gonna try to make it happen. Inshallah.
Sounds good. Okay, so next time, inshallah, we're going to get into Al-Baqarah then. And I'll give you the whole intro, the setup for Al-Baqarah then next time. But I feel like there's one more big point that I wanted to mention. Okay, I'll come back to it, inshallah. Maybe I'll remember, inshallah, for next week. Okay. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحانك اللهم, glory to you, O Allah. وبحمدك, praise and gratitude are to you. نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت, we bear witness there is no God but you. نستغفرك, we seek your forgiveness. ونتوب إليك, and we turn to you. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. Okay, now let's reward you all, and we'll touch base again, inshallah, next week. Okay.
That's it.